All right, so I thought I'd put a little video together today. I've been having some issues with my own ankle. I don't know what exactly I did, but I somehow seem to have like sprained it, and I didn't do any run or anything in particular. I guess that just happens after you're 40 years old or so. It's just things like that start to happen. So anyway, I just thought I'd kind of go through some different assessments using some MAT techniques and just trying to figure out, what's going on and why it's feeling like there's a lot of pressure. So we'll see if there's anything going on in that particular ankle. So I'm gonna kind of sit down and show a couple of things here first, but some of the first ranges of motion I'm just gonna look through are actually down in the ankle. My assessment or my initial thought is that it's probably not actually down in the ankle itself where there's dysfunction, but I'm just gonna test just a couple of things out and see what I see. So one of the first things anyone can do is just sitting down like this with your knees at a 90-degree angle. You can just try to lift your feet up. So right now my ankles are kind of directly underneath my knees, and right now that seems like both feet are going about the same height when I lift them up off of the ground. So the next thing I'm gonna do is that same action, but I'm gonna do it with my toes curled. So I'm gonna make kind of a fist with my toe and then try to lift it up. So the first one I had my toes kind of out like this. I was lifting it up, and now what I'm doing is I'm gonna curl my toes underneath my foot and then try to lift it up that way. So those are two different sets of muscles. So now I have my toes curled, and again, I got that right one coming up and down, and that left one is about the same height. So it's a little more limited on both sides, doing it this way versus with my toes flat down. Have a little bit more range of motion, but for right now, those ranges seem to be pretty symmetrical. And that's really what I'm looking for on this overall kind of ankle assessment, as if right now it's my left ankle that's really bothering me, but I want to see that can this kind of hip, leg, knee, ankle do the exact same things as this one. Because right now this leg, this knee, this ankle, nothing is bothering me currently on my right leg. So the next one I'm going to do is feet about shoulder width apart. I'm just going to try and keep my ball of the foot on the floor, but I'm just going to try and pivot and turn that foot outward. So I'm just kind of checking how far, just kind of like a windshield wiper, can I swing it out to the right? Then I'm going to compare that with how far can I swing this one out to the left. And right there I do notice a small little asymmetry. So my left one does not turn out quite as far as my right one does. So kind of pay attention, see how far that one turns out. And this one is just a little bit more limited going lateral, okay? So now we're gonna do the same type of motion, but now turning the toes in. So now again, trying to keep the ball of the foot on the floor, and I'm just trying to rotate that foot inward. And same thing, and that one is just a little more limited on that inner kind of internal rotation down there with the foot. Okay. All right, and the next one we're going to do is actually just a calf raise. So just here, I'm going to keep the ball of my foot down on the floor, but I'm just going to lift my heels up. Now what's interesting is that as soon as I lifted up into that range of motion, even though the range of motion didn't necessarily feel bad, when I lifted my left heel up, I immediately felt some issues right here where I'm feeling kind of that sprained ankle area. So down here, this muscle should not be the primary muscle that lifts your heel off of the ground. That main muscle should be right back here, this big calf muscle right here on the back of your leg. This is the one that should flex when you lift your heel kind of up and off. And currently when I'm doing that, I'll try it here a couple different ways. When I do that, and yep, I can feel that, especially if I do this, I can feel that actually right on my left ankle when I try to lift straight up and down, just like this. So it seems like there is a little asymmetry there down to the ankle. That's not what I was expecting. I was thinking might be something up here in the knees or in the hips. But for right now, let's see if we can kind of correct some of that stuff that's going on down in that ankle area. So just a couple of things on muscle anatomy. There are a couple of muscles here on the lateral side of your calf, but they're really, really tiny, that go down and along the outside of the foot, and they attach underneath the bottom of the foot. So some of those feel as though they are the ones that are flexing instead of this bigger calf muscle that should be doing that job. So what I'm gonna do is just a couple of little isometrics. So I'm just gonna hold my hands kind of on the top of my left knee. And I'm just gonna try to flex my calf muscle in a few different positions. So remember how we noticed that when I turned my foot out, it was a little limited, and also when I turned my foot in, it was limited. So you actually have two different heads of this big gastroc calf muscle. One attaches to the back inside part of your knee, the other one attaches to the back outside part of the knee. So in order to get one or the other. We're gonna do just these kind of like little rotational calf raises. So I'm gonna put some weight just down on my knee like this, turn my foot out. I'm just gonna squeeze up and just hold that squeeze, and I'm trying to target this lateral calf muscle in this position. I'm just gonna hold that for 6 seconds, and I'm gonna relax it. And again, kind of turn it out, lift up, hold that for 6 seconds, and then relax it. And again, keep that same motion. So I kind of reset after each one, turn my foot out, lift it up, trying to flex that lateral calf muscle, and then relax. So that's 3, and do 3 more. So again, up and flex, and relax. Now as I'm doing this, I'm trying to make sure that I don't feel that little pain in the side of my ankle. What I'm trying to do is just flex a calf muscle in this position. Okay, so this is the last one. And the other thing I notice when I'm trying to work this lateral calf muscle is that if I keep the weight more towards the ball of my foot, that seems to be really easy. But when I go onto the lateral part, so this kind of lateral edge, like more of the ball of your pinky toe, when I press onto that area, that's when I start feeling this lateral kind of ankle issues. So what I'm trying to do is really focus on trying to get just this lateral calf muscle on the back side and not feel this down here by the ankle when I do that. Okay, so we just did those lateral guys like this, it was sort of like that. And when I did that, I could feel that lateral calf muscle working. Now we're gonna try this medial one. So now I'm turning my kind of ankle or the back part of my heel out and the front part of my foot in. Now when I flex that one up, I am trying to put more weight on the ball of my big toe and then relax. So again, I'm gonna put a little more resistance on there and see if I can really isolate kind of this inner calf muscle on the back of that lower leg. And again, I'm just gonna do 6 sets, holding each one for 6 seconds each. So these calf muscles are actually really important. All these muscles are important, of course, but this calf muscle is really unique in that in addition to being able to lift your heel up like this, because it crosses the back of your knee joint, this muscle can also help you straighten and in some cases bend your knee. So because of its orientation and whether that foot is on the ground or off of the ground, it kind of provides different functions along the knee joint. And again, it's a fairly big muscle in that lower leg, okay? So all I did on there again was I worked this internal range, kind of pressing down on the ball of my big toe, and I worked this kind of outside or external range, pressing more down on the ball of the pinky toe, okay? So after doing those, I'm gonna actually do just a little palpation on the back of this leg, basically just trying to reinforce what I just did with those isometrics. Okay, so all I'm trying to do here is just kind of pressing down on the attachment points of the gastroc muscle, and I kind of go down right the seam of the lateral edge of that calf muscle. Then the attachment point is right here just above the heel, right where your Achilles tendon attaches to the bone in your foot. So I just did basically that medial gastroc muscle. And now I'm trying to do that lateral head. So again, it has 2 different anchor points up behind the knee. One is a lateral and one is a medial. So right now I'm just kind of going down that same process, just trying to get to that same areas just on the lateral side, just trying to kind of reinforce that range of motion. So anyway, doing this, I'm trying to figure out again, is it the calf muscle that might be shutting off or disengaging, which is then requiring this smaller little peroneal muscle that goes down here along the outside that is now trying to support that whole lower leg. So I'm going to try this again, just see if any of those ranges have changed. So again, the first one was when I turned this one in, my right one used to go further. All right, now that left one feels and looks a little bit better. The other range that we saw was going lateral like this. So my right one was the good one. Okay, and my left one was pretty limited, but now that feels a lot more open. So that has increased the range of motion, both on the kind of those lateral and medial ranges. And the next thing we're gonna try is just kind of going up on those tippy toes. Now when I do that, honestly, I still do feel a little bit of strain on that, ankle area down here. So I think there's still just a little more work I need to do on those back calf muscles, okay? So a couple things we're gonna do now is if you notice, we did that first kind of calf raise here on this left leg with my knees bent. That's one set of muscles that actually work when your knee is bent. There's another set of muscles that work when your knee is straight. So I'm gonna try and do that also. So from here, I'm just gonna try to internally rotate here. So my left foot is slightly turned in. And I'm just gonna do calf raises up and then back down. So I'm just gonna do 15 repetitions, just like this, and then when my toe is turned in, I'm trying to put weight down through the ball of my big toe on that left foot. Okay, and I can raise up just a little bit on my right leg as well, but right now I'm just trying to flex kind of that medial calf muscle as I go up into that calf raise. Okay, so I'll just do a few more of those, and I have a feeling that this lateral one is going to be the tougher of the two. So the next one I'm going to do is this lateral range. Okay, so I'm here, so my left foot is externally rotated, and now I'm trying to put a little bit more weight down through the ball of my pinky toe as I lift my heel up. And I'm trying to focus on feeling kind of my lateral calf muscle. And again, trying to get about 15 reps of those, just trying to flex that lateral edge. And I can feel that one's a little bit trickier, okay? And again, when I really roll to that kind of the ball, that pinky toe, I can feel that left ankle really wanting to get a little shaky as I do that. So I think we're on to something here. There's something with this external rotation, and it may not stop down in the calf and the knee area here, or the lower leg. It might actually go all the way up into the hip. So we'll test that here in just a minute. All right, so that's about 15 of those. So we'll go back to that same seated position and just see if that's changed anything. So again, it was this lateral one that was a little more limited, but especially when we went up. So that's better. But what I'm noticing is that again, when I go really into that extreme range of motion and lift up, I can still feel just that little twinge right down there on that lateral edge of the ankle. So I'd say it's getting better, but it's still not great. So we're gonna test a couple of other ranges here. I'm just gonna get one of my little yoga brick here for this next test. But for this one, I'm gonna go down on the floor. I just kind of want to check and see how some of my other ranges of motion are looking. So this next one, I'm gonna go into a figure 4 motion. So I'm just gonna lay flat down on my back like this. And then the first thing I'm gonna look at is how far down can I fold my right knee, just like in this figure 4 position. So when I do this, just kind of looking up at the camera there, I can see that my right knee is pretty even, kind of right where the seam of where this hardwood floor meets my carpet. So I can definitely see that range of motion even on the camera in front of me. Okay, and that one feels pretty open. Okay, now I'm gonna check my left side kind of in that same way. So I just have my hands behind my head, put this one up, and this one is quite a bit higher. So I think you can see that on the camera too, where this one's just a little bit higher. Now I can manipulate it by rotating my body, but I'd say the right one was more like this. Where this one, if I'm in the exact same position, again, kind of comparing apples to apples, this left one is just a little bit higher compared to this one. This one just feels like it just flops down and lays down flat, and I don't have to roll my hips at all. Whereas this one just feels a little tougher, a little tighter, and I can't quite get that knee to fall down. Just feels tightness kind of up in my hip. So what this means is that I have something going on here in this left hip that it can't externally rotate. So because it can't externally rotate, it's gonna cause some other little asymmetries and compensation patterns all the way down the leg, and potentially all the way down into the ankle. So the next little isometric I'm gonna do is I'm just using this little yoga brick here, and I'm gonna put my leg in that figure 4, but I'm gonna put this yoga brick just underneath my knee, and I'm going to try to drive my knee downward into the top of that yoga brick. So again, as I do this, I'm just going to hold this for 6 seconds and then release. And I'm going to do a total of 6 sets in a row. So again, I'm just pushing down, trying to contract kind of this outside area of the back of my leg, kind of towards the glute area, and then relax. And again, I'm just trying to fold my left kind of knee down into the top of this yoga brick. Okay, so we'll do just a few more of this. And again, I'm just holding that flex for about 6 seconds and then relaxing. And then again, squeeze down, try to hold that flex kind of near the glute muscle. And then relax, and I'll do one more. And again, just try to push that knee downward into the top of that brick, holding it for 6 seconds. And then release. So after doing that, again, I'll just kind of compare. We'll do the right side first since that was the good one. Right, and that shouldn't have changed. It's about the same. Knee is just like right at that seam of where the wood meets the carpet here. And let's check that left one and see if that's any better. Yeah, that actually is now lower than the right one. Okay, so it definitely feels more open in that position. Okay, But now let's go back and see if that's changed anything on some of our other ranges of motion. So I'll scoot this back right to where it was. We'll try this again. So here in this position, remember it was that kind of left or outward rotation that was a little more limited. That's looking pretty good compared to that one, right? Okay, now let's try this range and then that calf raise. That does feel a little bit better. I'm not feeling that little twinge or that little strain that was right here on that lateral edge of the ankle. So I do think that there was something there up in the hip, as well as maybe a little bit of shutdown along this whole like lateral chain on my leg and hip. Okay, so there's basically, you know, something here where it didn't want to rotate outward, and because of that, it started to strain another smaller muscle down into the leg. So I'm gonna do one more little exercise here. So this one, I'm just gonna straighten my leg. I'm just gonna roll it out, just like this. So as I do that, I'm trying to work some muscles up into this left kind of butt cheek and left hip area. So as I do that, I'm just trying to kind of flex those muscles, and I'm not trying to do this just with my foot, because I can do this just with my foot, and I'm not trying to do that. I'm actually trying to work these bigger muscles up here in the hip that move the entire leg this way. And so the way I think about this is, if my leg were just one big log, I'm trying to roll the entire log this way. Again, not just the branch down here on my foot. So again, I'm just trying to roll out and then let it come back in. So as I do that again, I'm trying to feel that butt muscle doing that job and opening that up. So again, about 15 repetitions of that. And then once we're finished with that, I'm just gonna go back and see and check those ranges of motion again. So again, my ankles are directly below my knees, kind of rotate that out. And that feels quite a bit better, okay? So again, the range of motion feels a lot better. Seems like it wasn't necessarily all these little foot and shin muscles down here. There's a little bit here on that left lateral calf, but most of it was actually seemed like it was stemming from up here in the hip. So it did kind of like chain everything down. We can definitely see how doing that can definitely strain some of these lateral peroneal muscles that are right here on this lateral edge of the lower leg, and they help wrap underneath the foot. So the interesting thing here is that with all of your muscles, they all can kind of compensate for one another by kind of working down the chain. So what we saw up there is that started down in the foot, checking those ranges, and there was a little bit off, but I would say the bigger range of motion that was really apparent was that figure 4 laying on my back, going down in that way. So again, just kind of a quick review on those exercises. Try to turn the foot out, do some different seated calf raises. The next one we tried to do was, again, turning the foot out and doing some standing calf raises. And then the third exercise was lying on the back using that yoga brick, doing the figure 4. And then the very last one we did was just doing that little log roll, okay, with the legs straight, seated on the bench, just trying to rotate that foot outward. So hopefully if you have a similar little ankle issue, just like I do, that maybe some of those same little tricks might help for you.